Stop using the wrong engine oil for European vehicles. One size does not fit all. Now this oil actually does meet many European oil requirements. As you can see, ACEA, API. Now the API is for the American Petroleum Institute. Now the ACA does set the standards for Europe and go further in specific tests to solve specific problems. The API uses the lowest common denominator as a guideline by its own admission. In the US, the API adopts one standard for all engines. For example, they're working with the ILSAC GF 4, 5, 6, however it constantly changes, and the problems they're running into is that oil will be too thin for a lot of older engines. It's not going to be the same for each one. They actually break it down for these European countries. For example, a different one for gas, diesel, turbo. I'll go into further detail. Sludging is a problem for European vehicles in America because people are using the wrong motor oil, such as Daimler, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, Audi. Many people believe because it's the same viscosity, they're all the same, it's okay and safe to use, when in fact that's definitely not true. Do you know many European cars actually state to use a different viscosity depending on the season? That's correct. Not to mention, each one has its own specification, and just because it's good for gasoline engines does not mean it's good for diesel engines, and you're making a big mistake. ILSAC, the International Lubricants Standardization and Approval Committee, was formed in the early 90s by the American Automobile Manufacturers Association in cooperation with Daimler, Ford, GM, and the Japanese Automobile Manufacturers Association to define aspects of petrol engine oil specifications. Now originally, if you remember correctly, European manufacturers set longer oil drain intervals well before in the United States. Why is that? Because there was a mandate because of emissions, and they wanted less waste over time. So make sure you have these markings so you can measure what comes out and what goes in. You get the picture. There's positive and negative on both sides, both making great quality oil. The main thing that you really need to keep in mind though, what is your car actually made for? The advantages that they have for these European oils may actually not be good for your vehicle. So you need to check that out. Just because it says European oil, also it doesn't mean it's the same as the next one. So you need to check the rating out for that oil as well, similar to oil in the US. Granted, they do have more restrictions for emissions in a lot of areas, but you definitely need to take into account of all the diesel engines that has been pushed over the years in those areas. And there's good reason for that. It's actually helped out a lot with the NOx, but in other areas it's not done so well. And that's really when they push the particulate filter for diesel engines so they can make up for that area. Please guys, make sure that you look into everything before you actually use it. Don't just assume that it's better for one reason or another. There are a lot of money being spent on manufacturing and the engineering and the R&D of these motor oils. The moral of the story is use the oil that the car manufacturer suggests. It doesn't have to be the same brand, but it needs to be the same specifications. Thank you for watching Nate's Interactive Auto.